Woke up with the understanding. This continues the video, so it doesn't matter if I'm wearing what I wore to bed. I woke up with the understanding and remembering that I hadn't fully finished the story. So this is part three. This is definitely the esoteric side of things, the more spiritual aspects of things. Growing up in the Catholic Church, um, graduating Catholic high school, getting so that's very deep diving into Catholic understanding and spirituality of things. Um, One of the things I did with that growing up was I was in the kids choir, the teen choir, the youth group. So I got a lot of spiritual understandings through that. Um, Music, the deeper meaning of many of the scriptures through the songs as they're presented in masses and worship services and things like this. Um, I learned to play guitar so I could play in church and things like this. So uh, uh, then I went when I graduated high school. After that, I went to I joined a community for a while, not a religious community, a spiritual community, the what some might call a what is that one again? The charismatic side of the Catholic Church. Um, the I was a member of the Cursillo movement. Cursillo being a Spanish word meaning little course or little path, the small path, which is the which is a spiritual side of the Christian community. It's multi denominational, but we were very much a Catholic oriented community. Most of what we did was on Catholic grounds. Um, and but I was part of that group, and there was a heavy bent on service, a heavy bent on your journey with God and finding what that meant in your everyday and what you could learn in the everyday, uh, and the promise you make at the end of your initial retreat into this community, because you go on a retreat for several days, and there's a lot of learning that goes into that. Not stuff you have to study and write back, but stuff to integrate and stuff to learn. And at the end of that, there's a service, a mass, and you go and you receive a communal representative cross. That's crucifix that is a beautiful little piece. It's just a plain silver cross with a bas relief on it of crucified Christ. On the reverse, it's got a line on it of text that represents the kind of the the promise, the vow you make. Christ has his eye on you, and and I have my eye on him. So if you walk with Christ, no matter where you are, he's there too. And Christ is beyond churches, because he started as a Jewish man, a Jewish person in 2,000 years ago, and he transcended his Jewish roots and called others to him, and they transcended their roots, and from there the 30,000 plus denominations of Christianity grew out over these last 2,000 years. It's a lot of denominations, but they all came from this one man who transcended his own learning growing up, his own teachings. He learned the Psalms, he learned the teachings, and he brought them out in a way that people hadn't seen. And they understood that, and they followed him. I don't claim to be Christ, but I feel I have done something to that level. I'm not calling disciples, apostles. No, that's not me. I'm uh, I'm very much on a solo journey, but if you want to come along and walk beside me, that's something else. We can talk, we can learn, we can grow together. That's where I'm coming from. The arm is poking arming today. Um, the So I was an active member of that community for a long time, alongside being active in the Deaf Catholic Church, where I was a valued member of the community. I was one of the younger community members, and I was volunteered and voluntold to go up and be a part of the service in a way that was not typical. Um, I was asked to do what's called static interpreting, which is doing the responses to the service and doing music, interpreting music, and things like this. Um, as a member of the community, as a deaf person, in a volunteer context, and being deaf myself, I could I had the allowance and the permission from the community to do this. Uh, so, but I was under live interpreters, live certified interpreters. I don't have interpreting certification. Um, I'm fluent. I was fluent. I'm rusty now, but I was definitely fluent in the language and fluent in the culture, uh, both church culture and deaf culture. I was becoming more fluent and matching those up. And so I was up there with the interpreter, and I was there with them, and they would be observing and supervising me when I was doing music and song. And there's usually another interpreter down in the audience and in the congregation who was she was an interpreter, and she was married to a deaf man, uh, and I respect her very much. I won't name names because I know that can be a professional boundary for them. Uh, but I was taught and I learned, and so I have a deep understanding of what it means to interpret, especially in religious context. Um, but just to quickly uh, expand on what static interpreting is, static interpreting means you have a chance to practice beforehand. Um, like if you're reading from the Bible, or you're bringing up music, or you're simply the responder for the congregation. So the priest priest says something on the altar, and da 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 da. That's the interpreter saying those things because they're representing the priest. I was representing the congregation and what we would respond with. And so these were things that happened every week. So there was no real need to worry about things going awry or changing. It was, call and response, call and response. I was the response. We all knew the responses, but we needed somebody there who could start it for the deaf community, because we can't hear everybody behind us going blah 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 blah. We have to go, oh, somebody's good, blah. It's that kind of thing. My skill in signing and interpreting and things like this came from that. So I was pushed forward by the community. I didn't want to do it, but they said, "Go do it. Go do it. We want you to do this," uh, and it was encouraged. So I did that for several years. Um, when it kind of came time to move forward, I moved forward, and I moved to a First Nations community when I actively started trying to join the Sisters of the Child Jesus at the time, and I went and lived as a tenant, as a boarder in one of their houses in Vancouver when I was working at St. Thomas Aquinas as well. Um, that was St. Paul's Indian Catholic Church. Indian was used because that was the uh, term of note when the parish was established, when that mission was established in the day. Now, I believe they use a slightly different name, but that's what I remember in the moment. I'm not going to worry about looking it up. You can go look them up. And that was in the territory of the Squamish Nations. Again, I'll remind people I live on the Katzie and Quantum, south of us. Katzie and Hatsik First Nations here in BC on ceded lands, and I'm always grateful for their uh, allowance to the people to live on the land. And so I honor that if I can. I remember that. Sometimes I don't always remember to mention it, but thank you, friends. Anyways, back to Squamish Nation in North Vancouver. I've spent a number of years with them. Went to their mass every Sunday with the priest being there, being an oblate priest, a mission priest, and I was part of the community, part of the choir, as I was wont to be, with my very, very high soprano voice that was admired. Everyone loved to hear my voice because it popped out. It popped off into the rafters. Um, and so, I would get compliments. People would say, "Oh, I love your voice. Oh, that's beautiful. You need to do that." Thank you. I enjoy doing it. It's not. I'm not here for the applause. It's getting weird too. Welcome to my little world here with the silliness of my equipment. I'll get a new one soon. Thank God. This needs to come down here. Otherwise, I won't be able to sure what I'm doing later. Um. Anyway, so the Squamish Nation. When I was there, I was part of the choir. We did most of the same stuff I did as a kid. Every parish has their own favorites and their own songs that they like to do. Uh, there was a heavy Cursillo component in the First Nations community as well, so there was crossover along all these routes. Um, and they met once in a month at St. Paul's, so as well. So it was all intertwined and all very, very supportive of my growth in that sense. Um, and while I was there, I would do things like one of the things that St. Paul's did that was different from most of the churches that we attended was instead of, well, not instead, in addition to the bells for certain points in the Mass, uh, the First Nations did drums. There was a drum hanging on the wall, and somebody would pass it forward and pass it forward to along the choir, and I was kind of in the front row, right behind the elders. And so I would pass it to Auntie in the front row, and she would drum the bells. And then one day, she simply looked back at me and said, "No, you do it." Okay, you want me to do it? Okay. So I have drummed within the community before, always asking permission first, always being, Auntie didn't want to do it one day at service, and it's like it was before massive things. It was one of the pre-Easter services, and I was so everybody was going outside to process in unless they were elders or something, so they were inside. So I said, I offered it to Angie. She said, "I'm not going outside. Take it outside." So I, okay. So I went to one of the uncles who was going outside because before services, if you were kind of paying attention, you would uncle would sit in the back, one of the aunties was in the front. So it's, hello, auntie, how are you today? Happy Sunday, kind of thing. Hello, uncle, how are you today? That same thing. Um, and so I went to Uncle George that Sunday and gave it to him. He said, here's the drum, uncle. And he looked at me and said, no, you do it. Okay. Yeah. And so, I got a few interesting looks from other people, and I was like, Uncle George told me to. Oh, okay. It's like, so from there, I did do drums sometimes, but most of the time it was the elders who did it, and that's just the role and respect. And one thing I realized at one point near the end of my time with that community, and this was kind of a catalyst to that ending, was how energetically and spiritually sensitive I am and emotionally sensitive. Um, because we were at mass, we were at services, and I was doing my normal sing a high harmony bit on a very well known song that we all shared across several communities. And I had that harmony on lock. I knew it from the start to the end and could flip through extras. Um, but the choir was made up of a ragtag group, which it always is a ragtag group. And at one point in the song, somebody else was trying to do a harmony. They couldn't quite reach it. It was slightly flat, and I could feel it. We were trying to both hit a high harmony, but at different levels, and they clashed. They did a dissonance. They did a dystone, and it stopped us both. And I looked over and saw who it was immediately, and they looked at me with a nasty little face. And then I went back to singing after mass. And standing chatting with somebody, and over comes this individual, and they started screaming at me. You're not allowed to do that. You're supposed to be deaf. You shouldn't be singing at all. You're not even supposed to be on the microphone. Blah, blah, blah. I tell you what, not only was my singing ability being questioned and insulted, but the fact that I was deaf and singing. Like, you're deaf. You shouldn't be singing. Deaf people can't sing. Fuck you. I didn't say that then. I just kind of was trying to hang on to the back of the pew because it was very energetically strong and rude in the sanctuary. And I was just like trying to hold myself together because that's an attack within the church. Um, and thankfully, one of the sisters came around, Sister Denise, and she saw me. She could see how much it was affecting me. She's like, hey, okay, time to go home. Let's go. So she was able to break me out of the moment and get me out of the situation. You but nothing more was said of it. Literally nothing. Um, no apologies. No one came to me to get my side other than, you know, no, nobody did, other than nothing. Uh, so I learned that day that no sanctuary was safe. And I went back the following Sunday and a couple of Sundays after that. And I couldn't focus. I couldn't pray. I couldn't do anything. I went through some of the motions, but I was locked down. I couldn't be there, and so I stopped going to that church then and there. Walked away, and the lack of defense, the lack of caring, the lack of reparation, the lack of just generally all of it, the lack of respect. I couldn't be with that person in that community. It was a mess for me, spiritually, emotionally, sensitively, a mess. So I went elsewhere. That was probably the first major crack in my Catholic spirituality. Um, After that, it was a bit of a rapid run for some parts. I not My back was already starting to give by then, and that crack in the system spiraled me into a bit of depression, which helped the ramp up the uh, breakdown of my dedication to Catholicism. And over since then, there it is. Since then, I've been doing more and more deep diving into who I am and my spirituality, uh, and having done the high end philosophy and theology with the Catholic Church and St. Mark's, and having done the more energetic, charismatic spirituality within the church and the Cursillo movement, as well as the youth side of things. I went to World Youth Day in Toronto back in 2000, and there was an interesting experience there. Uh, I went to with a small group from my parish growing up, and we were five, and our adult chaperone, one of our five was the adult chaperone, and they had something happen. They couldn't go. They got sick, or somebody had to go in the hospital, or something major happened, and nothing, no tea, no shade there. Nothing wrong with that. That's reality. That the person who volunteered to take their place really didn't want to go. They felt obligated. And they were housed with the two youngest of us, and I and the other one, we were in our early 20s, we were housed with another family. Um, and the younger two were convinced by this person who didn't really want to be there not to do anything the first day because they were tired. Um, I went and enjoyed my first day alone. I went with the parish that we were in, because you would go to the parish and everybody would go from there on the trains. So I was kind of adopted into a group that first day, and then after that, it was with my group again. Um, and and one day we were there. We were going around as a group, and the younger two were ahead with the chaperone, and I was kind of lagging behind. And we'd met somebody because one of the things they did for food was you had to have 6 people in a group to get a full set of meals. Like, so if you were a group of five or a group of seven or a group of 9, 12, whatever it was, you needed to have 6 people, 6 tickets in hand. Somebody would go pick them all up and come back to the group, kind of thing. So, but they were in packs of 6, and so us being five, we constantly had to find one other person for for food. Come join us, and it was kind of an I guess they considered it some sort of networking or evangelization practice kind of thing. And so, join us, come join us, be part of our group. Somebody's needing somebody. Oh, you need an come on, come on. And so we had adopted a French Canadian young woman. And she and I kind of hit it off because me with my French immersion and her with her French Canadian, we were able to have decent levels of conversation most of the time, chuckle and laugh at our own idiosyncrasies in the languages. And we were walking along behind our main group, just chatting. We were paying attention to them, but we stopped because there was a poor woman from France who was experiencing jet lag and just wanted to take a nap in the shade. And so she had found a spot behind a sign that was, you know, not in the sunshine, and she was just trying to and there's this other woman standing over her, like, and trying to tell her, you need to go to the medical tent for that. You know, because neither of them spoke the other's language at all. We had a woman from France and I think a woman from the States, and they were just loggerheads. So my new friend and I, we kind of made the interpretation change. So I was on next to the English speaking woman, and I was taking what she was saying and passing it to my French Canadian friend, and they passed it to the person from France. And between us, we figured out she's not sick, she's not hurt, she just needs a place to quietly relax. And so we did help her find a medical tent, but not because she was injured, but just needed to lie down. Just take a nap. Here, we'll help you find the tent where you can go and take a nap. And we did. And by that point, the rest of our group had tootled off wherever they're going to go, and lost track of us because we were trying to be good Christian people and evangelize and help somebody in need. And they didn't see that, so they continued on. I got texts, "Where are you? You better meet us after service and mass," and blah 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 blah. And I got in trouble for trying to help somebody. So that was also an early indicator to me that not all is well in the Christian community of the Catholic Church. People are still selfish, people are still broken, and that's true of everything and everywhere. You know, your faith does not make you any better a person. Your understanding of spirituality doesn't make you anything better of a person. It's what you do with it. It's how you behave with it. If you go around telling somebody you shouldn't be doing this because of obligations to our blah blah blah, and you don't take into account that somebody's an adult or somebody's done something very specific or somebody's using a particular talent, and you base your opinion of them on one thing, you're always going to be wrong. Always. That led me to be very circumspect when I talk to people. Sometimes, like, I'll say certain things. Sometimes if I feel safe with a person, I will say more, and I'll be more divulgent. I'm not usually as divulgent as I am here right now, but these things are key to what I'm saying. So you're not getting my childhood history with how I learned XYZ. You're getting very specific stories about me, and how I learned what I know. So, yeah, we I don't know where I'm going right now. Oh yeah, back to back to North Vancouver and my spiral into chronic pain and depression. Not only was that part of it, but I had around that same time I had asked to proceed to the next step with the sisters. I had done it once before and received a no at the time, and I understood at that the no then had been due to me being in a particular place and a particular mindset that told them she's not ready for this, she's not um, in the space for it. And yeah, that's fair enough. I was studying spirituality, I was doing all sorts of things, but I wasn't really ready to actually join a religious community, and I never was, because that was a false calling for me. But I tried, I attempted, and I asked again, and the answer came back as a no again, and it was, well, things you said in the interview told us that you weren't actually asking, you were pretending. Not the words they used, but mine. So I had to look at that and go, why do I keep getting no here? Why do I keep getting no? And I rapidly understood after doing some inner work and doing some thinking that the no was from inside me, because the no was, no, you're not this. And part of that, no, you're not this, was, no, you're not female. So why would you be a nun? Kind of thing. And so that was kind of the start of my transition. From there, I did a lot of learning and studying on intersex conditions, transition for trans masculines, things like this, uh, because I didn't have latent hormones to a significant degree enough to fully feminize me, and I never had a hormone cycle. Never 28 days, never 15 days, none of it. I didn't have enough hormones to cause any of that. And so I from there I went and studied and learned about that, and I rapidly became fairly well versed in my own self. And at one point, I had to move away from the North Shore in North Vancouver and move into my father's house because I couldn't afford to stay where I was. Being on disability, being on short funds in in the Greater Vancouver region is difficult, to say the least. Looking for a place to be now, that's not here because there's a lot going on with that one. Uh, being un, I mean, the options are a single room furnished already, or the space that I need to be an adult human in the world with my animals, with my needs, with my desires. Mean, means I need more than a bedroom, which I'm kind of stuck in. I don't have my books. I don't have a proper place to do art, read. I'm in my bedroom, period, and it's tight. I my despite the rats having all the space they need and desire, I don't. Uh, I sacrifice that for them because that's more important to me than my own comfort. I would rather them be safe and comfortable and free of trauma than having my space just for me. Uh, but I don't have space. I don't have. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of books on a variety of topics, mostly spirituality and music, and my textbooks from college and university. But um, I'm a reader. I always have been. That was one of my escapes growing up, to get out of the abuse and the taunting and the teasing. Um, I had my nose buried in books. I would have up to 8 books at a time going, and I would just, one book I'd be reading it, and I'd put it down for a while, and I'd find this book. Oh, this looks interesting. I'd start reading that, and that would be in another spot. And by the time I got to book 8, book 1 was somewhat forgotten over here, and I would find another. Oh, cool, and I just keep going because I knew where I was. Uh, and that was my childhood constantly, my high school constantly. I always had a book somewhere that I was reading. I still do, but not as many these days because technology has kind of overtaken the world, and we're attached to it. And I'm still trying to get myself to be less attached to it despite this. Um, so, if I don't have MySpace, I would be out in the wild, I guess. But MySpace is currently very physically cramped and starting to get very spiritually cramped due to personal and familial reasons. And if you're watching my videos, you may understand a little bit more of why and how. But yeah, trying to live in the lower mainland is expensive at the best of times, and I've been very, very blessed to be in a situation where I don't have to spend that much on my rent, on my money side of things. There's BT going for his breakfast, just looking around. Hi, buddy. Yeah, there he goes. Go get some water. Go get some water. That's your food. Okay, there you going for the food. Good boy. Yeah, he struggles. He's just on 2 years old, and I think he's got a pituitary tumor, or he's had a stroke, or has a different type of tumor, not a pity. And so he's on the struggle bus now. Yeah, so he has his moments. And anyways, where was I? Got distracted by the rat. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, fairly recently, about well, beginning of May of this year. It's 2026 now, so May 2026, early in the month, I suddenly realized that one day that, oh, I haven't taken this medication in a few days. What's going on? And so I listened to my body and went, I don't think I need that one anymore. I'm feeling a little better, and I'm still feeling crappy, but I'm feeling a little better. And so I went and I said, okay, well, do I still need this one? And I slowly titrated myself down off of uh, 7 medications at high levels. I was very, very careful. Like if you watch my other video about my medical history, um, I'm well versed in medicine and medical needs, and my doctor that supervises me is well aware of this. And so when I go to see him, we've had conversations. What are you doing with this? What are you doing with this? What are you doing with this? And if he doesn't hear anything wrong, he's like, okay, keep doing what you're doing. So I keep doing what I'm doing. And one of the things I did was titrate down off medications. I was on 20 milligrams of morphine a day, and I went down from that in a, you know, I'm now on. I'm now on nothing. Literally, I'll have a little bit of a puff of marijuana, which is one of them once in a while, but it's more of a comfort now, more of an enjoyment than it is a medication. Um, and you know, now, I mean, being in that kind of mental fog on top of chronic pain and chronic depression from said pain, uh, my mind is on fire these days. I've stopped needing all those medications, which dull the senses, which dull the mind and the heart the energetic ability to understand all these things and feel these things. And now, because it's been a good 10 years of backup, I've been shot out like a fucking rocket. And so we're on the fast track through a lot of the esoteric. Um, I'd always been kind of fascinated with magic and other things like this. Um, and in grade 9, right before my back surgery, because of the way it was scheduled, I was going to miss the exam season for high school that year. And so, to make up for that lack of exams, because I was going to be in recovery for months, let alone. So I couldn't take tests. I couldn't take exams. No, no, no. That would have been stupid. But I was able to go to my classes and say, hey, uh, Mr. So and so, I need to do this to get marks so that I don't have to take the exam. and things like that. So my English teacher at the time gave me a book to read. Uh, do a major report on this book. Once the book was called "I Heard the Owl Call My Name." So that was one of my earliest introductions to First Nations spirituality, which was then because the owl in the First Nations community is a very important symbol. Um, in general, it represents wisdom and seeing in the dark, and especially certain different animals like the brown owl is an interesting one to me. Not brown owl, the barn owl. The barn owl is important to me because the barn owl is known to have asymmetrical ears. So, like most people have two ears that look like this, whereas I have one that looks like this and one that looks like that. The barn owl has asymmetrical ears. I don't know the exact configuration, but I know, but they have very stereoscopic hearing because of the way their ears are set up. So, me with my ears, I connected to that already. Um, in First Nation spirituality, the owl is also a caller of change. Traditionally, it's death. So if you hear the owl call your name, it's usually a signifier of death. You are going to die soon. But uh, now I understand that it's not. It's a signifier of major change. It can be a death of a type. It can be literal death, but it can be like the death card in tarot, where it's a death and a rebirth. You may die to one thing, but you will rise to something else. So the owl is a very important symbol for me across several cultural representations. Um, and, yeah, that was one of my earliest things for Native spirituality, First Nation spirituality. My earliest introductions to magic and slightly more esoteric things like that was books. Big fan of different magician type books. Not the technical stuff, the fantasy fiction stuff. That was more fantastical. And I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings by the time I was 10. Not by the time in grade 10. I had already finished reading those books by the time I was in grade 10. Um, Read them a couple times, but I found a book series that I have. I'm missing the last two I haven't read, but he's one of these guys. The author is one of these types that wrote this book and wrote the next and wrote the next and wrote the next and wrote the next, and they finished the story, and there was more stories to come, and they've got this entire world that they've created. Um, Book series is the sword of truth. Uh, and the main character is a character called Richard, um, and he starts out as just a woodsman um, in a place with no magic because there's a barrier up from a previous wizarding war, and so you can't cross this barrier. Um, and Richard is just a woodsman. He's a guide for people traveling between towns. He helps to keep the barrier guarded because things come out of it at night sometimes. There's rangers who do that specifically, but he's there to help. And so he knows the forest, he knows the berries, he knows those kinds of things. And one day he meets somebody who is trying to escape from magic hunters, and this person ends up taking him across the barrier. And on the journey, he finds out that he is actually a wizard. Richard does, and he ends up being what's called a war wizard in this world. So he's not a normal wizard. Like most normal wizards in this world have a specific set of talents uh, that are, key to very specific elements and spirit lines of energy. Uh, Richard, being a war wizard, transcends all of it. Uh, I guess I identify a lot with Richard. And so I've gone through all these stages, much like he did. He started as a simple man. He went across the barrier with this person he had saved from death, really, and moved across and learned how to do this. He learned how to do that. He learned how to do this. He ends up learning that he is very, very special. So that's my message in this particular thing for me. In a lot of ways, I am the war wizard. I've taken everything that I've learned and some things that some people haven't, and taken symbols that people want to be one way, and I kind of transmute them into something else. Like this guy, Richard was learning how to meditate and center his power because he was learning that he was a wizard. He's learning to control his abilities, and he was told to picture a blank um, canvas, just picture black, and put a very specific shape onto it, and meditate on that. And he tried to do that, and all of a sudden he's like, I need to fix this somehow for me. And he had this sword, and the sword of note in the story, the sword of truth, which he had picked up at some point. And so he takes this sword and he places it on top of the symbol in his mind. And only turned out after the fact, and he explained this to somebody, and they looked at him and said, only a war wizard would do that. Oh, only a war wizard would do that. And, that was kind of his first indication that he was different from the norm in that way. So I guess I'm in my war wizard phase.